Hi, Gary. Welcome to Over 50 So What? Great to have you on the show.
Great to be here with you, Carol.
Now, there's a lot of people out there that they're stuck. They want to make a change in their life. They're not happy with certain elements of their life. And you've developed this amazing Wohlman Method. Can you tell us what is the Wohlman Method for the whole person?
My name is Gary Wohlman, so I've done a bit of a twist with the word whole and found the wholeness within and turned it into a methodology called the Wohlman Method for the whole person. So it's a bit of a play with words. I've always been an acrobat and a champion springboard diver, gymnast. So I work with the body in a very dynamic, creative way. And since I was 20, which is now 50 years ago, I began to take this prowess of understanding how the body can express itself and my interest in healing and therapy and an earlier desire to become a psychiatrist to find ways through many different wonderful teachers, first in San Francisco and then Hawaii, and took this all around the world, great teachers who were able to assist me in finding these different tools that I put together in this one methodology, which is basically stretching the muscles, increasing people's capacity to take long exhalations, strong inhalations with the visualization of waters falling. You can do that while you're watching me, everyone. Waters fall as you exhale long. Sigh of relief. And then as you breathe in, sunrise lifting. As you breathe in strong. So we get a dynamic visual that helps the letting go on the exhalation, the receiving of fresh inspiration, literally and physically, on the inhales. So I'm combining stretching the muscles, working with breath and visualization and the sound, and while the muscles are being stretched, I speak in rhyme, like Dr. Seuss. Not to be silly, yet to take people on a very whimsical vision quest to transform their self-talk in the shortest amount of time. Those 5 submodalities of breath, sound, visualization, stretching, and rhyme creates an immediate encodement of the new self-talk in the muscle memory. Because it's multisensory, it's almost impossible to forget. The rhyming is catchy, the stretches are unforgettable, the spaciousness is a beautiful feeling, the sound is deeper and more resonant. And mainly what I've done over the last 5 decades is shift the focus from the physical body to the emotions, the mental clarity, and helping people take a stand for their lives. That's what I'm doing more now these days, because we all have to take a stand. Otherwise, we're going to be stepped on. We know this these days. So I've created a very swift, streamlined methodology to assist people in connecting up all these different levels of consciousness so they live and lead a fulfilling life rather than the one you just mentioned, that they're holding back and not doing what they want to do. It's very scientific, it's very simple, it's very fun, and it's really powerful. Most people burst into tears or break free almost instantly of the old patterns, and suddenly they meet the person that they wanted to meet. They, for their business or for their partnership in life. It's quite magical, actually, if I do say so myself.
And I do understand that the Department of Education and Training also accredited it. So it's an.
That's right. When I was living in Queensland a number of years ago, I had given these sessions as an introduction to a woman who had her own ATO, so she was able to actually create she said, your methodology, there's nothing like it in Australia, there's nothing like it in the world. You deserve to have your own method, and I'm going to help you. The Department of Education and Training wound up endorsing my methodology. So that didn't happen in my own country of the U.S. It happened when I came here, and this is where it really took hold. I mean, really, really pleased. That was 20 years ago. And now I do short trainings, both online and in person, and human to human, face to face, when people who are already therapists, counselors, doctors, yoga teachers, any specialty at all, to multi-sensorize their communication, even as I talk, you see I use gestures very focusingly, which then connects not just the body, but also the presentation and the presence, so people make more sense with their verbal words, their vocal sounds, and their visual delivery. I'm deliberately doing what I'm doing with my hands. I'm not just making movements around. Conscious connection with their body, with their messaging, and a greater intimacy and engagement with those who they're connecting with. It's quite interactive and engaging, this whole process.
Now, what happens?
As you know, because you've had a session.
Yeah. Yes, I have. So it uses all modalities: visual, auditory, kinesthetic, and yes. And I think a lot of people watching the show also understand that, you know, emotion and stress comes out in your body, so that they're very closely entwined. Your emotional, psychological state. And
that deserves to be referred to, because what you said is something quite profound there, Carol. I see myself as an archaeologist of the soul. What I mean by that is that I see all of us humans buried in our own landscape, meaning that first, as I see it, it's my job, or people in my similar position, people who I train, to free the physical layers of tension that are on the surface, that hold tensions in place, that keep people in these ongoing patterns. Underneath the physical layer is the emotions, the self-talk that holds, just like you said just now, these old habit patterns, even if they're not what they really want, because they're familiar, they keep repeating them in place. And once the physical and emotional layers are unraveled, and I introduce self-talk with the stretching, the rhyming, and the breathing, then the creativity can come through, people's gifts of expression, to be a public speaker, to be a singer, a dancer, a nurturer, to find a gift that was buried inside, unearthing, coming out into their lives. So that's how it works. It's these different layers of physical, emotional, and creative. Once bound, now bound to release. Yeah.
So if people are able to come and see you personally, what happens in a session of transformational body therapy?
Because I'm focused on the multi-layered levels that I just mentioned, physical, emotional, and creative, and because we're working not just with the physical body, there's some wonderful body therapists around. I've met them and I've worked with them. I'm one, over the last 50 years. But most body therapists don't have the training to deal with these emotional patterns and the more deeply buried conscious patterns. So often when someone comes to see me, I do a short interview. Very simple. I ask one question. What is it that you're ready to release, receive, and follow through with in your life? It's generally three different answers. Someone may say, I'm ready to let go of holding back. I'm being the optimal version of myself. Okay? Then we focus on the exhalations and stretching. I'm ready to receive fresh inspiration, more money, a partner of my life, a feeling of spaciousness with myself that I help everyone else with. Okay? So that's the second one. And then once people admit that they want there, then, okay, what are you going to follow through on? And then we work with the muscles, with lengthening the exhalation, lengthening the muscles at the base of the pelvis that assist people not just to let go, but to go further. Many people stop short. They only put their foot down a little bit, or their hands go out a little bit, or their words and actions only go so far before they hesitate. So what we focus on is the familiar, repetitive patterns. We identify the patterns, and then I provide different tools and techniques and tips, both human to human, face to face, as well as these days online. Bless the pandemic for this, because online now I can reach people that I never could reach or see before, and that's the hidden silver lining in what's happening at this time. So that's what I do. I take people on this short interview, and then I stretch the muscles of the body that are connected to those holding patterns while shifting the self-talk simultaneously.
So you actually can help people remotely if they can't get to see you in person.
Absolutely. Yeah, as a matter of fact, there's many people that I've connected with over the last 2 years that I never have met in person, and some of whom have been, past lovers and girlfriends and wives and friends, people I haven't seen for 20, 30, 40 years, as well as many people find me online because I'm quite a presence. When you Google me, you'll find 25,000 different entries. Yeah, online I found that it's actually quite easy to use the hands. There's different exercises I've developed, and I'll show you one or two throughout this session today that are quite profound, provocative, that people can remember, and they have an instant shift that then can be continuing to grow over time. So it's not just a quick fix, but it's something that, like pulling a tapestry, the string continues to unravel, and they continue to find new solutions, resolutions, and fulfillment that they never could do before on their own. It's a pretty simple process.
So what sort of challenges have you been helping people with over the last 50 years? What do people come to you?
My main gift seems to be in freeing people from the habit pattern, the familiar pattern of doing what I'm doing with of pulling back, of holding back their love, their wisdom, their creativity. They're putting their foot down. I see the body now as a series of dynamic conversations that are embedded in different places. And so when I find out not only where the physical tension is, if it is in the neck, it's probably something to do with speaking up, or the shoulders up to the ears, not feeling safe to be heard. The area around the chest and the heart. I won't let myself get rejected from a relationship, and then I also won't let love in or money in. So I see these patterns, and I know these patterns, so I work with all of these conversations to shift the inner dialogue while we're shifting the muscles. So it's, everything about letting one wisdom through, one speech, I matter, what I say makes a difference, and my shoulders drop away. I'm always connecting a physical component with a verbal and emotive and interactive statement. So people have a lot more of a connection, an anchor between what they think, what they say, and what they do. So that's what I'm doing all these years, is finding ways to create a congruence between these areas, thinking, speaking, and action. And it's very simple. Where's the tension? Okay, there's the tension. If the tension had a voice, what would be the voice that matches the sensation there? When a person says it, then I can go back with them to an earlier moment in their life where they remember when this pattern began. Even if they don't remember, we all have wounds. We all have times when we closed down. We all have times when we held back ever since this happened with mother, father, sister, brother, lover. So I replay the moment with them. We actually reenact it like a psychodramatic moment. I did studies in psychodrama too. And by replaying the moment, then we shift the way that the moment is remembered. We change the ending. So there's a different memory, a different recall, and people return to this as the new self-talk, the new default program, rather than the old litany that continues to repeat forever. So I'm constantly doing pattern interrupts. This is me throwing a monkey wrench into the works.
So what do people come with you to let me do that again. What sort of challenges do people have that they ask you for assistance with?
The other day, I was doing a workshop in a group session. It was actually over the New Year's. There were about 30 people in this workshop. And one woman felt called to come up and be seen. And she declared, I have a real problem trusting men. Common problem, with men trusting women trusting men, the female side, the male side, the nurturing side, the assertive side. And she said, I have all these examples of men who've taken advantage of me, men who've raped me, attacked me, assaulted me. I have all these different examples. So I said to her, look, there's about 30 people in this room. It was outdoors, actually. Select from this room five people who represent these different conversations. One might say you're not good enough, you never deserve a relationship. One might say, you deserve better, you're never going to find what you want. It didn't matter what the voices are, but we staged the different voices around her body physically, and each one took a different shape. One was maybe in her face, one was in back of her, one was holding her shoulders. It could be anything with a repetitive statement, a staccato repetitive statement. You're not enough, whatever it is, over and over. And I had, as I pointed to these different people, each one of them expressed those words until she started to react and feel all the pain, all the sensation, all the memories of all the time she wouldn't let love in. And then I had to redo it, to play the scene, like I said a few minutes ago, again, to do it in a fresh way. This time standing up to each person. Saying to one person, I've never told you this before, but really you deserve to be able to speak to me in kind, loving terms, and I'm just not going to listen to you if you shout at me or you're angry with me or you're trying to abuse me. Sorry, I'm not interested. So she took a step, to stand to each of these 5 different voices that are in her head anyway. And then 2-3 days later, after the workshop, she met the man of her dreams. And she's so happy. And she's put this actually on Facebook, a testimonial about, oh my God, I faced my fear by reproducing the patterns and then shifting the conversation with each one. That's a typical example of the challenge that I work with interaction, with men wanting to be with women and women wanting to be with men. It's not always the first time. I mean, that was with the immersion of 30 people, so it was even more powerful than just working with me alone. Some people have a message, but they don't know how to share the message. And they have a thought of, I'm not good enough, or my parents told me that, you can never be this or that, and they've been carrying that with them all these years. So we replay the moment where they were told, no, you have to sit back, and I had them do a very specific exercise. I think you were going to ask me this question later, so I'm going to answer it anyway. This is an exercise I did with you, so we're going to do this together, remember? If you have, you who are listening and watching, because you do, we all have our version of this. If you have a particular self-talk that's repetitive, let's do one that's let's say I'm not enough. That's mine. That's one of mine. Of course I'm enough. I'm more than enough. But because my mom had huge standards, and even my A pluses in school were not good enough for her, in my being a champion diver and a great scholar, and getting the award for the student in high school that had the best combination of scholastics and athletics, I still was shaking like a leaf in front of people. I didn't trust it. So I would ask you who are listening, let's identify this one. I'm not enough, okay? It's not necessarily true. Of course it's not true, but it's a story. So you might do this, okay? First, shaking out the hands. Do this with me, Carol. And if you who are listening, you can do this too. Shaking out. And with the sound, I like to enter a little bit of ridiculosity because it has great velocity to it, like a Monty Python moment of letting go of disgust, the sound of vomiting it out, the old pattern. Blah, blah. Go ahead. Blah, blah, blah. No one wants to feel like they can't have what they want. It's another. Blah, blah, blah. Blah, 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 blah. It's silly, it doesn't matter. That's just to move the energy. Step number 2 in this particular exercise is you direct your right hand, this is my right hand, out towards the person that pushed you down years ago, and you address them saying, I now address you, mother, father, sister, brother, lover, who years ago when I was very young had such high, strong expectations that I developed this belief that I'm not enough. And it's repeated in all my thoughts, words, actions, and interactions. Tired of it. It's not who I am. It's a false identity I did to be able to deal with the constant criticism. Sound familiar, you who are watching? Yes, I can see you in the back laughing. Yes, yes, you can relate, can't you? Very good. So, take your right hand. Make it like a cup or a chalice. Say these exact words or your version. It's not like you have to monkey me. These version of my words after me. Saying these words. I take this pain and I send it. The pain of holding back all these years, the feeling, believing that I'm enough. I send it first with one arm, say it really strong out loud, with your full body, back to the source.
Back to the source.
That's right. And then both hands, your full body, dynamically expressing this. I send it back to where it came. Back to where it came.
Back to where it came. Back to where it came.
Right. Yeah. And then if I were standing with you in the same room, you can imagine yourself moving clockwise the way the clocks used to go clockwise before they decided they would go digital. In other words, moving through time and space. And even if you're sitting with me in the online space, let the heels of your hands go up into the air. Sink your heels of your feet down to the earth. Feel that? And then say these words after a full breath in. I have just sent this past pattern somewhere else to play. Today for me is a new day. And then I have people touch their hips, symbolically and literally, while you say the words hip, hip.
Hip, 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 hip.
Hooray!
Hooray!
That's the fun, pleasurable part. And then you say, from this moment on, because this is really important, from this moment on, I come from the place of being more than enough. I have abundance in all of my relations. Money comes flowing in. I have gorgeous connections with people. I have fresh inspiration. I allow myself to receive fully. My upper torso is stretched. So in the body work, then I work on these same parts of the body. When a person's laying on their back, on their stomach at the beginning of a session, and if this is their head, and this is their lower spine, I would have them breathe, picturing waters falling down the spine, but you're ready to release on the exhale, sunrise lifting up the front of the torso on the inhale, but you're ready to receive. And then to say these words out loud. You experience this, Carol. To the old habit pattern, say that out loud.
To the old habit patterns.
Of my belief that I'm not enough.
Of my belief that I'm not enough.
And I can't have what I want, relationships with men or whatever it is, I send you somewhere else to play.
I send you somewhere else to play.
And I instruct the person, kick your legs up and down like you're having a tantrum. And then I stretch these muscles. I stretch the muscles on either side of the spine while I ask the person to say these words. Well, I'm doing this with my forearm up their spine. Say these words after me. I release holding in my back.
I release holding in my back.
And you do that while you're breathing back. Good. Now breathe way back. I release holding back.
I release holding back.
Any ways that I'm ready.
Any ways that I'm ready.
And then the top third of the torso, while I stretch up towards the wings and free that area, I release having to hold back.
I release having to hold back.
So you see what we're doing? We're connecting the physical shifting, the releasing of holding in the physical back with the releasing of the patterns of holding back. So it goes right into the psyche. So it's quite swift then, the shifts. Persons often, after the first session with me, not all the time, but often in the first session, someone will call me up after and say, what did you do? All these men are calling me, or all these job opportunities are coming to me, or I just got an opportunity to be in a movie and I can't stop the phone from ringing, because we've shifted the energetics that have created a pushing away. Then the person becomes magnetic. Does this make sense what I'm saying to you?
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
What do you understand that's making sense? I'd like to hear how you, as a representative for all of those listening, are hearing, digesting what I'm telling you. Tell me.
I would say, because I've done a lot of work on affirmations and visualizations and body work as well, that sort of brings it all together.
Yes, exactly. It brings it all together. Breath, sound, visualization, stretching, and rhyme simultaneously creates a new encodement of the self-talk immediately in the muscle memory that then, because it's multi-sensory, it's easier to remember that than to go back to the old familiar. This becomes the new familiar default program. There we go.
Can I just go back to the question I asked before? What I'd like is that people sitting watching can get really clear in their minds why they might contact you. So,
sure,
you want a new job, you've got to get out, you want to get out of a relationship, you want to attract a relationship, you get more specific about the sorts of emotional issues or challenges they've got in their life that they might come to you for.
Well, exactly. So at the very first thing that you and I shared here today, you were asking me what is the Wohlman Method, and the very first thing I said in this conversation with those of us listening here today was this. I said I always ask one question at the beginning. What are you ready to release? Exhaling. What are you ready to receive? Inhaling. And what are you ready to follow through on to go further, longer exhalations, deeper sound, putting your intentions down like a fiery um, lance of heartfelt intention to the center of the molten earth. And it's everybody's got their own version of that. I'm ready to let go of patterns of holding back my speech, holding back my joy, holding back my ability to share my wisdom. It could be anything, to put my foot down with ease, you see. Um, one of the patterns that I often have people show at the end of the session, because they're feeling now all fluid and flexible. The more I trust what I deeply know, the more my thoughts, my words, my actions fully, freely flow. So I create a rhyme after stretching the muscles that connects them to their innate wisdom, what they've been keeping inside. On the exhalations, that's focusing on the lower body, the pelvis, the muscles that are called the psoas muscles that look like violin strings, connecting the third lumbar lower back area to the hip joints. And when we stretch those, people can let go more easily of holding on to a familiar relationship that's not good for them personally, professionally. That's the exhalation. On the inhalation, what happens when we inhale? We are receiving. So our relationship to receiving, breath, life force, emotional support in relationships, abundance on all levels and dimensions of one's being, is metaphored by the upper torso. So if you, as a person, were hurt in a relationship, and we all were at one stage, and you made a decision, I'm not going to get hurt again, what happens to the physical body? It tightens. I'm not going to get hurt. I'm going to be tight. I'm going to be rigid. No one's going to get in and hurt me. But what they don't realize is, not only am I not letting people in, I'm not letting love in, I'm not letting experiences in, money, opportunity. And so as I stretch the wings here and free the wings, then a whole different conversation shifts to, I'm ready to have it all. I allow full breath. I receive beautiful colors, sunrise, lifting, inhales. And I claim, full breath in, embody my greatest fulfillment now. So we're looking at specifically what areas you're ready to have more inspiration and fullness and more room to let go and follow through on the exhalation. I put my foot down with ease. I often ask people to say at the end of the session, what matters the most to me? So we're connecting all different levels of consciousness through the body, through the being. What makes sense to you about what I'm saying there? I'm showing you specific challenges.
I'm just trying to get to the basic things that people would come to you for. So maybe they've got trouble with the relationship, that they want to get out of a destructive relationship. Maybe they want to attract a new relationship.
That's right. That's right. I know a number of times. I've been doing this so many thousands of times now all over the world. I know another historical pattern that has happened often after I work with a person, either the first time or over the first few sessions online or in, human to human and face to face in the same room, is I've had this happen a number of times before, and people write about it and they go, oh my God. After the session, I felt wide open. I felt very receptive. And people that I've been wanting to reach for years, person I've been talking about having a contract with me for years, they called me on the phone. People I've been wanting to reach, they've been writing to me, what did you do? What I did was I released the filter that kept people away. So suddenly opportunities came to them that were already going to be coming to them, but they've released this stance, this physical, energetic stance that they've had. Get away, I'm not ready, or I'm defensive, or I don't trust. So that's what happens in the elegance of these sessions. It's quite remarkable to hear people's comments.
So when you ask these three questions, it could be something to do with their personal relationship. It could be something to do with their career. It could be something to do with attracting finance and prosperity into their lives.
Yes.
So it could be something to do with their health.
Allowing more. their health. It could be about anything. It could be about allowing more inspiration. And I'm very clear about the word inspiration as we focus on allowing more air to come in. Literally, I'm inspiring more, but I'm also receiving more inspiration, creative ideas. Some people who I've worked with, I remember when I first came to this part of the world, there was a woman who had had a session with me in San Francisco, and she invited me to come visit her and her family. I spent 6 months with them in Waiheke Island in New Zealand. And I remember one day when I was working with her, I think her name was Ginny. This is 1990. It's 30 years ago now. And I was giving her a session. I was stretching her neck, and I remember I just had a sense to ask her at this moment. And so, what is it you'd like to receive? What would you like to be in your life that you haven't allowed? As I was stretching, allowing more space and more inspiration to come through. She said, "Oh, I want to be a writer." And she became a writer. She was already in her consciousness able to do it, but as soon as she said it, then she joined writing clubs. She started doing this creatively, professionally. So it often in just a moment, the spontaneity comes through, and the awakening that we wouldn't even think would be there is revealed to a person. Personal relationship, money, saying goodbye or attracting the right person or people. All of these are done with metaphors while stretching the muscles at the same time and opening up the creativity. Like I said a few times during our session here today, that we're freeing first the physical tension, then the emotional self-talk that keeps that tension in place, and then the third layer, digging underneath the landscape where people are already buried, then all this creativity comes through. Suddenly they become massively attractive to whatever it was that they've been resisting, that they've been thinking that they wanted. So it's a really simple process by shifting the old familiar to a new familiar, and then this becomes attractive. You don't pay attention to the other anymore. Hello. You were going to ask me one more question, and I know the question you're going to ask me.
I've got a couple more questions, but
yeah.
But you've very kindly offered Gary a free 20 to 30 minute session for any of the viewers that are watching. What would happen? What would you do in those 20 to 30 minutes?
I knew you'd ask me that. I was prepared to say the same thing I was about to say anyway. One of the simplest tools and techniques I've been able to develop over the years is what happens when we feel conflict inside. On the one hand, this, on the other hand, that. On the one hand, I'd like to do this. On the other hand, I'm used to doing that. And so I actually physically have people use their hands like puppets to speak to each other. So it might be, on the one hand, this is my right hand, I'm used to being very assertive, communicative, and on the other hand, I know I'd like to attract more opportunities and people to come to me without having to pick up the phone and do marketing, blah, blah, blah. So I ask the person with their hands to say these words out loud. I'll do it as though I'm giving myself the process. I'm ready for a new relationship with you, my assertive side and my self-nurturing or self-reflective side. Up to now, I've let you take the upper hand, always pushing and trying so hard. It pushes people away. I'm ready for you to shift. You can be more relaxed now and play. Oh, this is good. This is good. I'm tired of doing this on my own. But it's both hands. And me, the one that kind of gets the underhanded, not as much attention, I'm ready to share my vulnerability as strength and maybe to have my voice speak stronger so I can go down a bit and I can come up a bit. So it becomes a renegotiation of contract between any two sides that a person feels in battles with within, and then to shift the conversation until, okay, I'm going to relax a bit more and you show me your wisdom so I can play and we can have a much better connection. You can then provide the intuition and the connection that I've been looking, and you can move forward but without trying so hard. Does that sound good? Yeah? Yeah? Okay, put your hands together. So then they remember this pose, and I might take a picture of them so they can freeze, or if it's a Zoom session, they'll have all this recorded. So they have a physical embodiment of the shifting of the conversation by using the hands like puppets to shift the conversation to a new conversation. The same tools, but I don't have to touch them. We're using the dynamics of their words, their vision, and their engagement, of their physicality, their viscerality, so it becomes as tangible as possible. So it's quite fun to do this online.
Right. So if someone that wants to take advantage of the free session, 20 to 30 minutes, they can pick sort of one process and you work through it with them on one particular process.
That's right. I can take people through approximately 20 minutes per condition. That's how I've developed this specialty over the last. It takes about 20 minutes for me to move through one challenge. So bring one challenge to me, and I'm happy to guide you with a complimentary Zoom session, whether it's 20, 30 minutes, I don't care. And until you get the shift, and then you have a different sense of, oh my goodness, life's different now, because we've been in this engagement together. It's quite immediate, the shift to take place, but not just in one month. It happens more over a period of 2, 3, 4 weeks and over time.
Now, there'll be a lot of people watching today that have never tried a natural therapy, an alternative therapy, and they think, oh, it's all a bit strange sounding. What would you say to them?
I would say, I know what you mean, because when I was 20 years old, I was 20 years old once, 50 years ago, and I remember I moved to San Francisco in 1973. I didn't get into medical school, and I suddenly came across some amazing teachers in bioenergetics, postural integration, deep emotional release, or all of this. It was just the mecca of the days in the early 70s when this was happening. And at the time, people looked at me and this whole field of holistic health as, it's a fad, come on, it's just hokey pokey and touchy woolly, hooty woozy woozy. But I had a very different sense, because I'm a very powerful communicator and I'm very acrobatic, athletic, expressive. I've always been that way. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to commit myself in this lifetime, because I see how powerful this work was for me in freeing my physical energy, my emotional openness, and my mental and creative clarity. We're all bound in our own landscape. So I set it on a path for the last 50 years to create pathways for others to connect. What we all do, we breathe. But sometimes we don't breathe fully, so we don't receive fully or release fully. How can I connect that with stretching the muscles at the same time, with the intelligence that we all have about what's bound in these areas? Wisdom, longing, grief, self-expression, releasing the weight of the world, letting love come in, vital force, emotional support, abundance. So we connect these different areas one by one together. So for those of you that are a bit skeptical, I love working with skeptics. Is often when you experience what we do and you go, oh my God, this actually works. When we put together breath, sound, a sigh of relief as you let go of tension, visualization, water's falling as you exhale long. What am I ready to let go of at this time? Sunrise lifting, breathing in and out. As you breathe in strong, what am I ready to receive at this time? With the stretching of the same muscles that are holding these conversations in place, and then the rhyme. I do it in rhyme because it creates something whimsical, fun, easy to remember. A good TV advertising, you can hear it repeating in your head for years. I can still remember some great ones. So this combination of breath, sound, visualization, stretching, and rhyme, for those of you non-believers, since you do this anyway, you breathe, you feel, you emote, you make sound, and by shifting the self-talk, you see that it's actually very practical. By putting these together, it's no longer fuzzy-wuzzy. It's like, oh my goodness, it's the science and art coming together, connecting one's mind, one's emotions, one's physicality with the spiritual connection that we all share. So skeptics quickly dissolve in my midst, even the most critical people, because they see their patterns changing, or they see their friends' patterns changing, and they go, oh my God, I think I want what they're having, because they see it works. And the person's suddenly in a relationship with person or money or opportunities or creativity that they wanted themselves. So yeah, for those of you that don't believe, I recommend, whether it's with me or someone else, I don't care, give it a go, because when we connect all these different elements together, there is a multi-sensory encodement, as I mentioned a few times here today. So it's almost impossible to forget because it's more fun, it's more spacious, it's more joyful. So of course you'll return to that rather than the old litany when you practice it enough. So some of this is practice. It's not just it happens and I do a quick fix. It's not about that. It's your participation and ongoing looking for, after giving a session, I always ask this question. What is it that we've set in motion that is continuing to shift? What progress, what breakthroughs are you noticing in the thoughts you think, in the words you speak, in the actions you create, and the interactions and dreams? And once people have that as homework, and they know they're going to share with me what shifted, guess what happens? The shifts happen even more easily because they know they're going to communicate with someone that's only going to reward them. I'm not here to criticize, only to enhance, to inspire, to empower, and to nurture. That's those three key words is the bottom lines of how this methodology works so streamliningly, if there were such a word.
So Gary, have you got one or two quick tips for everyone today, just to finish off with?
Sure. Look at what three key words match who you truly are when you're in your essence, when you're in your power, when you're in your full self-expression, and how those three key words match gestures that you can use more easily now rather than just being a talking head. So I'm going to say these words out loud, and might as well you say this with me, and that way you can inhabit the same consciousness as well. So I'm going to say, I'm creative, and I'll do something like that with my hands, and you say, you're creative with the same gesture.
Creative.
Right. And then, I'm playful, and the voice changes, and the hands go just right. And I'm transformational.
Transformational.
So those are my three gestures that match those three key words. Make a note, and you can share this with me. We can do this online as well, of what three key words and gestures match. So you're not just a talking head when you communicate from now on, that you're actually using your full body to make more sense, to reach people on more levels and dimensions of being through reaching more senses when you speak. So words that match gestures. That's the first exercise I would ask you to practice. If you can't come up with three, write to me, call me, Zoom with me, and I'll help you with it. Because once you get those three in place, then before you speak on stage, before you speak with your lover or share a very sensitive communication, you might get yourself into the zone first. I'm creative, I'm playful, I'm transformational, or whatever your three is, and then speak from that place. Okay? That's exercise number one. A second exercise, a simple tool, technique, and tip when you're speaking. I think, again, it's coming back to the breath. The breath. Because it starts, our life begins with the breath and ends with the breath. So let's focus on that one more time. As you exhale, picture as you exhale, waters falling with a sigh of relief down the spine. Picturing all you're ready to release at this time. Breathing in, picturing sunrise lifting each inhale into the chest and heart. Each inhale is sunrise. Each inhale, a fresh start. So whether it's ready to receive, you don't even have to know. It's just keeping the vehicle opening the fullness of that inspiration on that upper torso. And then finally, a longest exhale as you practice now, not just letting go, but going further, longer, deeper with what you truly know. The sound of deepening. I put my foot down with ease. What matters the most to me. And then you may find that instead of stopping short when you want to write to someone, speak to someone, or share the wisdom and the creativity of your being, you go a little further. You spend an extra minute, or you let your arms and your sounds go further than when you used to pull back and stop short before. It's just practice. So that's a really good exercise with the breath and the intention and the intonation all matching up. There we go.
Well, that's great, Gary. That's certainly given us lots of food for thought today. And we will put all the links and everything on the website and let people know how they can get hold of you and take advantage of that free session. So thanks so much. Great to have you on the show.
love to share with this particular way. This work that has come through me over the last 50 years, I really feel I have a sacred responsibility to share it with as many humans as possible, to go as deeply as possible, to transform lives. And one person shifts and it dominoes out to everyone in your family, your community, your company, your country, and in the world that we have. God knows that we need to speak up and take a stand for our lives now more than ever. And this is a very powerful tool to do that.
Thank you so much for sharing it with us, and we'll see you again sometime.
You will indeed, Carol. All right. Thank you all, and look forward to hearing from you. And you